So many things to explore. Take an African adventure. going on, everybody? Hope that you're doing well. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. I am, I guess, on this side of the world, getting ready to head back over to the other side of the world. But this topic that has come up with what's going on in Ukraine as it pertains to Russia and so many other different factors, want to have a conversation tonight because some of what I've been hearing has been very one-sided, misinformed, and normally I don't even get onto these topics, but I do. You just got to kind of hear what I'm saying in between. But I wanted to talk about this a little bit tonight. Please make sure that you share this. Make sure that you let people know that this is a conversation that I believe that will be beneficial for anyone who really wants to kind of get beneath the layers of what's happening and what's happening in this part of the world and why it's happening in this part of the world. Because if you just listen to Western media, then you'll just think automatically, wow, Putin's invading these people who are just minding their business and he's just moving in. When this is, it's a little bit deeper than that. Now, it's a lot deeper than that. And there are a lot of players involved in this. And these players are players playing around the world on many different levels. And that's the part that is so important for us to be able to unpack a little bit. I'm not going to do like a deep analysis on this because it doesn't really require a deep analysis because it's kind of like the same playbook all over the world in different places. But what triggered this conversation tonight is the fact that I saw a post, and the post was talking about how Ukraine and Russia had this abusive relationship, and Russia was abusive to Ukraine, and now Ukraine has all of these friends in France and the UK and the European Union and America coming to their aid and to their rescue. And so now this is because they stood up to Russia and this is what it is. And so there were people who were like, yeah, now I understand what's going on. I understand the story. And I was like, no, you really don't understand the story. If that's what you're walking away with, you really don't understand the story. And I just couldn't sit back and just look at that and kind of shake my head. Sometimes you look at something and you just shake your head because, that's not right. And you just keep it moving. I said, I couldn't keep silent on that level of one-sidedness and flat out ignorance. I just could not keep quiet on it because it's unfortunate. Now, as we get into this, to be very clear, there are no good guys in this story. No good guys. No good guys. But the way that it's been portrayed is that, of course, it's good cop versus bad cop. And as long as I've been alive, I've realized that I have been manipulated by the Western media into thinking like that. So when I talk about the Western media, what does the Western media look like? It looks a little something like this. The Western media, and there's more. I mean, you can put Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You can put your favorite media outlet or least favorite. But these are the big players in this conversation. And what begins to happen is that these players have a level of influence. And in them having a level of influence, they have the ability to shape the minds of the world. Much of our information comes from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Channel, ABC, NBC, CBS, Al Jazeera, BBC. And this is around the world. In my travels throughout Africa, I could always find CNN. When I was at the airport in Addis Ababa, guess what was playing on all of the TVs in Addis Ababa? CNN. When I was in Tanzania and I was searching through the channels, guess what I could find? CNN. I saw satellite dishes on every house, shack, hut, mansion, you name it. Everywhere I've been on the continent of Africa. In Ethiopia, I saw it. In Kenya, I saw it. In Ghana, I saw it. In Sierra Leone, I saw it. In Egypt, I saw it. In South Africa, I saw it. So what that says to me is that the level of influence and control over the information that's being disseminated throughout the world, these right here are the major players in the conversation. And if someone does not have the ability to disengage from this, and again, there are other newspapers in other countries and all throughout the world, but if they don't have the ability to disengage from that and pull back and say, okay, what's really going on, they will repeat this information over and over and over and over. And then what ends up happening is that information, which is incorrect, becomes correct in the minds of enough people to where they actually believe it. So, with that said, and I'll come, please feel free to comment. I'll come back over to the comments. I have you up on several different platforms. I know we're broadcasting live on Facebook. We're also broadcasting live on YouTube. So both, and please be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Click the like, thumbs up, give it a thumbs up along the way. And please feel free to comment because there's so many layers to this. And it's not just one thing. There are so many different layers. And as you begin to get into the layers, it starts to make a lot of sense. So that's the first thing to say. The concern was the fact that that post went out. People were like, yes, I understand, without really understanding. The other part is understanding what's happening, what is happening and what has happened. There's a term called imperialism. And we'll simplify the term imperialism and just right with this right here. Very simple. Imperialism occurs when a strong nation takes over a weaker nation or region and dominates its economic, political, and or cultural life. And you can go even to micro levels of religious life in food and fashion and all kinds of things. Of course, that goes into the culture. But this is what imperialism is. And imperialism has been going on for ages, for hundreds of years, really thousands of years. When you go back to ancient Egypt, you begin to see, and that's what makes Egypt so relevant, because you begin to see how imperialism took over from the ancient Egyptians, and then from there you began to see how the Greco-Roman era, the Arab era, the German era, the French era, the British era, and so now you have a combination of several different things going on. But that's what you began to see happening as a result of imperialism. Imperialism is what happened with what we now know as America, when you had the French, the Dutch, the Spanish, and the British as they began to come over and colonize or imperialize what we now know as America. And they did this in South America as well, in Central America, all throughout the world, in India. You can just go to the Philippines. You begin to see all of these different things in Australia. There's a pattern, and it's a recurring pattern. So I give you that context so that you can understand that what we see, just because you see, you see the bombs are dropping, and we definitely want to send prayers to those who are being affected by it, because no one wants to see that. No one wants to see the loss of life as a result of anything. But the reality is that the world is constantly at war. When you look at the history of the United States and the wars that they've been in since independence, if you will, 1776, it's been like 200 some odd years worth of wars or something going on, some sort of conflict that America has been involved in since that time. Why is that? It goes back to imperialism. So when you understand imperialism and how imperialism works, in addition to colonization and all of that combined together, now you wonder why America's always in the middle of something. Well, there's an interest there, because America's a corporation. Well, Russia is a business also. The UK is a business. France is a business. The Ukraine is a business. These are all businesses. We hear country because that's how we've been indoctrinated, but they're really businesses generating resources and money, and they have economies, they have populations, they have a tax structure to be able to collect money. And each one has a different type of system. It might not be called taxes, might be called something else. Some are considered socialist, some are considered communist, some are considered the pseudo democracy. So all of these different things you begin to break down, and once you understand the dynamics, now this whole scenario that's taking place between Russia and Ukraine makes a little bit more sense. Now, someone actually, someone who follows me in Russia, they sent me this video to say, hey, this is something I haven't seen a lot of from a different perspective. Because when you travel the world, even when you have the CNNs of the world, all over the world, because it's different. They have like BBC Africa and CNN Africa Voices, and CNN. So it's like they cater it towards whatever region they're in. Even with all of that going on, it's a different story. It's when you're in those places. When I was in Dubai, it was a very different story than what I see in America. When I was in South Africa, very different story than what I see in America. When I was in Togo and Benin, very different story. So the perspective in the other parts of the world is very different, because if what we do is consume our information from these players right here, if this is where we get our information from, then what ends up happening is that that's all we know. And most of us are living our lives and not really concerned about it like that. We're kind of like, hey, okay, as long as y'all don't bring that foolishness over here to us, then y'all can do whatever you need to do. We send up a prayer. All right, we'll post a little something on social media, prayers for Ukraine, and we'll do that. But as long as y'all don't bring that over here to America, then we good. Y'all handle that. Yeah, that's your problem. But the reality is it's our problem. It's been our problem. But we don't see it as such because we've been imperialized. We've been colonized. So we go through the motions with it without even understanding. And then we start having full-throated assessments without having the facts, without having the information. So take a look at this clip. And this is from another perspective that you probably will not see on CNN, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, Fox, USA Today. You probably won't see this broadcast so much. And the reason why this is important in us bridging the gap, I'll talk about that also. So take a look, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this part of it.
The Biden administration says the beginning of a Russian invasion is underway. The head of Nato says they have hundreds of warships standing by in the Mediterranean Sea. Things are spiraling out of control. So how did we get here? The media explanation is basically Putin evil. But this explanation leaves out the core of the issue, which is NATO's expansion. NATO, which is short for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was originally formed at the beginning of the Cold War as an anti-Soviet military alliance composed of the US and Western European powers. Now, one might have thought that since the Soviet Union dissolved and is no longer socialist, there would no longer be a need for a NATO. But instead of disbanding, the NATO alliance actually expanded after the Cold War into several countries that were once part of the Soviet Union, although it rejected including Russia itself. For decades, basically all political figures in Russia, not just Putin, have objected to this NATO expansion as a repurposed military alliance aimed at encircling Russia. NATO claims it's a defensive alliance, but after the Cold War, NATO went on top of the governments of Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, and Libya. Given this history, Russia fears that it'll be the next target. Furthermore, Russia's demand that NATO stop its expansion isn't exactly unreasonable, considering NATO countries made several promises that the NATO alliance wouldn't expand past Germany. These promises were since broken, and leading US national security figures openly dream of regime change inside Russia itself. Fast forward to 2013, when pro-EU protesters took aim at Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, who was playing the EU and Russia against each other and wanted Ukraine to stay out of NATO. After Yanukovych announced a deal with some in the opposition, the more extreme elements, led by literal armed Nazis, seized the president's palace. These protesters were openly supported by American politicians and ushered in a new far-right, anti-Russian government that aggressively sought Ukraine's membership in NATO. From Russia's perspective, you can see why this coup in Ukraine was so serious. Russia was already surrounded by NATO countries, and foreign powers invaded Russia through Ukraine in both world wars. The admission of Ukraine would mean that any future clash on Russia's border would trigger mutual defense obligations for all NATO members and essentially produce World War III. On top of that, when people in the eastern Ukrainian region called the Donbass rejected the new coup government and saw closer ties with Russia, a civil war began. Fighting in Donbass has gone on for 7 years and claimed over 14,000 lives. For those 7 years, Russia worked to uphold the Minsk Agreement, which was supposed to deliver peace by giving the eastern part of the country autonomy. This never happened, and the fighting escalated again, which is what brings us to today. So whatever you think of this specific decision, the history is clear. At every step of the way, this conflict was instigated and inflamed by NATO's aggression. So if the US and EU really want to see a peaceful resolution to the tensions in Ukraine, their first step should be to disband this relic of the Cold War. The Biden administration says
Well. Now, that's another piece of the puzzle that you typically won't hear about, the fighting that's been occurring all of these years and the different coups and the different things that go on behind the scenes. Now, this becomes the topic of the day, and we embrace it and we run with it and we say, hey, this is what's going on. It must be true. We're looking at the news, man, that Putin ain't no good. That Putin ain't no good. Now, let me say this. There are no good cops in this whole fight. Not one. Not Vladimir Putin, not Joe Biden, and anybody else that's involved when you look at it on a governmental level. And I will tell you, this is because the innocent people that get harmed in this, and this is how it goes all over the world. Now, let me explain it to you a little bit more. There are skirmishes that are happening in Africa right now, in Ethiopia right now, in Congo right now, in other parts of the world. that are exploited and funded by the big three. And when I say the big three, meaning China, Russia, and the U.S. For those of us in America, we always believe that the U.S. is the holy savior that comes around peacekeeping and using terms like democracy and these brainwashed terms that we have been indoctrinated with. And unfortunately, many of us believe that that's what's occurring. But when you go to other parts of the world and you get the story and you see on the ground and understand it, you come back, now you're looking at these networks really sideways, because they dare not go all the way in. Now, sometimes you have Al Jazeera might put a little something out there, but they have their side of what they're presenting. And obviously you have here in America, you have MSNBC, you have Fox. They're appearing to be on opposing sides of political issues. But when you dive into this and you understand the history of the world, because I just stopped. What I did when I saw it, I said, okay, wait a minute. I said, now I hear what, anytime like America starts to talk, it's like I automatically like tune it out, because I know, because I've lived my life being, fooled by it. So I woke up and I said, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. So again, when I stopped at, and I thought about Haiti and the French, and I started thinking about different places in the world, India and the British, and then I think about Egypt and all of everybody who's been through Egypt. And then going on the continent, then I go down to South Africa and I see what the British have done there, and then the Dutch and the British, and you just kind of see the same players playing the same game. So now you have this Nato alliance. Now I stopped there. I said, okay, let me think about this from a colonial mind. Let me get my nationalism out. Let me get my. I said, okay. So if we're dealing with imperialism, and if Russia is sitting here basically surrounded by enemies, because when you look at the history of Europe, the European alliance is the French and the British fought each other for over 100 years. Then when you go back and you think about even in recent times, I think back in the 80s with the Falkland Islands, and you begin to see how these battles between these imperialists have been going on for ages. I said, why would Putin take a move like this, so aggressive, or apparently so aggressively, unless somehow he may feel threatened? I'm just kind of stepping back. I'm not defending Vladimir Putin on any level. I'm just saying, I'm just looking at this a little bit more objectively than what I'm seeing in social media, and especially from folks who look like me. I'm just like, y'all, come on now, we got to do better than this. So I'm thinking to myself, you're surrounded on this side, but then you have Ukraine, which is this big piece of land right here. And now they want to join forces basically with your enemy, or what you say is your enemy. All right. So diplomacy, okay, they use terms like that. We're going to sit down and talk. So, okay, all right, I get that. Now, of course, they say, well, he's trying to claim that this was a part of the Soviet Union and Russia and all these different things all along. I said, okay, I'm getting past the propaganda and I'm getting down to the business, because everything goes back to business. Everything goes back to business. I don't care. Y'all can sit up here and talk about it goes back to this, that, and the other. Everything goes back to business in this world. All right? That's the bottom line. Everything goes back to business. So I thought about it. I said, okay, could it perhaps be that he's actually defending himself and not necessarily being on the offensive, and maybe we're getting slipped the Mickey and being told that this man is going on the offensive, because we don't know what they're sitting down and talking about in these imperialistic conversations. And then when you start looking at it and you start saying, wait a minute, he's getting surrounded. And what the history, and this is the other part, when you understand the history of the CIA in the United States and how they operate and what they do, they go into countries, destabilize countries, set up coups, fund coups, overthrow governments. And I'm thinking, I said, now Putin knows this. He's doing the bomber. He's rolling with the big boys and all of that. He's doing all that. So he understands this is how this game works. What would cause him to get to this point of being this defensively aggressive? And then I thought about it. I said, and then now why is China has an interest in this too? China has an interest because if Russia gets destabilized and falls, now China's surrounded. See, when you start looking at it on that level, you start seeing where this story is a little bit deeper than what's being presented. You never hear presented that the CIA, that the United States CIA goes into countries and intentionally destabilizes countries to overthrow them in order to conduct its imperialistic work. What they'll do is they'll say, oh, Gaddafi was a bad man. Saddam was a bad man. These are, so they demonize people along the way. We don't stop long enough to say, wait a minute. All right, well, we hear what you're saying, but give us a little bit more of this story. Tell me, break this down for me a little bit more. We don't do that. We just go with the flow and then we repeat it. And then as we repeat it, we don't even realize we're repeating things to our own demise or our own, when I say demise, meaning we might not be demised in the sense of our everyday living, but as far as our knowledge base and our education, yes, to our own demise, because we don't stop and say, how is it that we can be such a world player? What is it that we can do? We have this military, we have cyber military, we have cultural military, when I mean cultural influence. We have a lot of different things in places where we can bully countries. And being in Africa, that's what you see. And that's a lot of times people don't like me saying that the illusion of independence and all of that, it's an illusion. And puppet governments are in place. And that's not just in Africa, it's all over the world. And so now what you see happening, what Putin would desire to do is to overthrow this particular government in Ukraine and to put someone in place that's going to protect his interests. The reason why the U.S. is not going to go toe-to-toe and get into this battle is because now that's escalating things to a different level. Now that's going to a level that no one wants to see. Now you're dealing with the nuclear potential and all of that. Whereas if you just kind of let things go, let them fight, let them hash it out, let's see how it plays out. Okay, we'll impose economic sanctions. Now, here's a real gangster move that I know a lot of people didn't think about this. A lot of people don't think about this. There's profit in war. There's profit in war. So the savvy capitalists, because now you're dealing with imperialism, now capitalism comes into play. Capitalism comes into play to say, okay, they have a skirmish over there. Russia exports oil. If this is about to happen, then I might need to pick up some oil stocks because the price of gas is going to go up. Now, a capitalist understands how imperialism all works together because now you're dealing with a global economy. So like those capitalists who understood how the game was being played, they picked up the stocks that were going to be, that the demand for those particular things are going to go up. We're thinking inflation, every day, this, that, and the other, our everyday lives, gas is going up, the bread is going up, that's going up, without understanding how all of this kind of ties together, not kind of ties together, how all of this ties together and how people can make a whole lot of money off of it, off of war. They don't teach us that in school. Well, I mean, they might tell you a little something about that. Where World War II is what saved or pulled the people out of the Depression. So we needed to go to war, and we went to war, and we came out of the Depression, and boom, all the baby boomers came, and it took us into the economic prosperity. Well, and the sad part is that people lost their lives as a result of that. People lost their lives. And that is the way of the world. And unfortunately, that is the world that we live in. There's an illusion of peace. There's an illusion of independence. There's an illusion of democracy. There's an illusion of all of these different things. And until we get to a point of being able to say, wait a minute, what's really going on here? So the question again is, could Putin be in a defensive posture while he's being projected in America as going on the offensive? When was the last time America made itself look bad in the media? Tell me the last time America made itself look bad in the media, in the world? Never, it never does. Not in the history of my lifetime. And I've been here a while. I've never heard America go out there and say, yeah, we're horrible and this, that, and the other. It's always some kind of way where America is going to be the peacekeepers. America is going to take the food to go save the people that are hungry without telling everybody that America is the one who stole the food from them in the first place. So in other words, they'll steal 10 tons of food throughout the back door, bring it over here because the wealth that we enjoy really is stolen wealth, truth be told. Truth be told, when you get to the core and the essence of what's going on, the wealth that this country enjoys is stolen wealth. So then what ends up happening at that point, you take 10 tons of goods, then you take 1 ton back. And what the people do is, oh, thank you so much for coming to bring me food. Thank you so much for coming to save me. Thank you so much because you dropped some food, some rice, and thank you so much. Without somebody stopping and say, well, if you gave them the money that you should have given them for the food that you stole, they wouldn't need you to bring back the one because they would be the ones who are wealthy. They would be the ones who would have plenty. And then what they do is they put the corrupt governments in place. They put the corrupt presidents. And when the corrupt presidents step out of line, they have what you see happening in Ukraine. So the bottom line is everybody says, well, Putin has blood on his hands. America has blood on its hands, the same amount of blood, if not more. The same amount of blood. When you start looking at these ethnic conflicts happening in these different countries, a lot of people don't know about the dam in Egypt and how the Soviets or the Russians were involved and the Americans and how these countries, they're trying to figure out who they're going to sleep with. Literally, I mean, I hate to break it down like that, but they're trying to figure out who am I going to sleep with because either one of you, or who am I going to work for? Which one of these pimps am I going to work for? Because I got to figure out how it is. And so that's how it is with many of these nations. Many of these nations rely on the protection of places like the U.S. from a military standpoint, from an economic standpoint, or China. It'll go either way. And while they're trying to figure out who's going to be in charge and who's going to do all of this other kind of stuff. So when you start understanding the larger imperialistic implications, you stop and you say, okay, why is it like this? Well, it's money. That's why it's like that. And then trying to figure out how we all fit into this equation. So it's complex, but it's really not complex because it's been going on and on and on. So many countries might not even be feeling this whole process, but what are they going to do? What is a country with a limited military going to do? How are they going to stand up? We don't stand with you. You're going to have to pick a side. That's the way it works. That's the way imperialism works. Whose side are you on? Well, for the safety of my family and my country and the people in my country, I guess I have to be with you. Or they sit down and they work deals out, the negotiations. Listen, we'll give you all of these arms to protect yourself and we'll train you. And if it really gets bad, we'll send over some people to make sure that things are in order in exchange for, we're going to put you in debt. We're going to take your resources. We're going to influence your judicial system. And we're going to influence. That's why when you go to certain countries in Africa, you got the black people wearing the white people's wigs and stuff, the little white wigs. That's because somebody has imposed that. And now you have governmental structures that say, okay, this is acceptable. And then you put that on the people and then the people accept it. And then they cry foul. But then the same thing keeps happening. That's in the Anglophone countries. That's not in the Francophone countries. So just to be clear about that, Francophone countries, French colonies, Anglophone, British colonies. You'll see that in some of the Anglophone countries, but in Africa, I should say. So when all of this is happening in America, we don't even think about this stuff. Where our minds are caught up in something else. We're ready for the next football game and the next concert and the next, what we're going to buy next, the next holiday they have us focused on. They have us, how much in student loans we're going to take out this time around. Our minds are not even focused on the global implications because another part of where we've been conditioned is to think that we're superior. We think that we're privileged. I hear it on YouTube all the time. Yes, I'm privileged. I'm this, that, and the other. In a sense, yes, but in another sense, no, because coming with that privilege comes with a level of ignorance and cultural ignorance and cultural immaturity and cultural insensitivities. A lot of that comes into play along with that so-called privilege. Those so-called, I have it so good. I can't believe how good I have it because I have running water and I have all of this infrastructure, which was stolen. The rubber tires and all this other kind of stuff. I can do all these different things. It's just the reality of it. When you get out there and you see it, you begin to understand the depths of how this thing is. So anyway, again, there are no clean hands, dirty hands everywhere. I just don't want it to go down and somebody not say something about this because it's like, I'm watching like black folks just like, oh man, it's terrible what Putin is doing. Oh my God, how could he be doing this? And I'm saying, don't you know Biden ain't no different? Don't you know if you understood some of the stuff that's going on the continent? Oh my goodness. And in the hands, the blood that's on America's hands, you understand the history of Ghana and Kwame Nkrumah and how all of that went down when he wasn't so-called killed. He wasn't killed when they removed him, but the CIA was behind the coup that took him out of office. Why is that? Why is the CIA even involved in what was going on in Ghana? So these are things that, again, our history books don't talk about it. All right, let's hop over here and get. Let me see, where is it? All right, let's see here. All right. Hey, what's going on, Elliot? All right. Everything is up. Yeah. Oh yeah, Benghazi. Right. All right. See, you got me thinking. Got me reminded. Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay. So what I want everybody to be able to walk away with is to go dig deeper. That's all I want you to do. when y'all see this stuff on, oh yeah. How we distracted with sports. it's we got all kind of stuff going on. They got us twisted. And but at the same time we complain and we cry foul. We cry foul, but twisted. And I just said I can't sit back and just like say nothing. Because if we do that, then now we're accomplices to the crimes of misinformation. And that's what's going on, y'all. So what I hope that you would do is like share this with somebody who's running around, screaming, Putin. Just put Putin and Biden together. That's why they're in that picture right behind me over my shoulder, sitting there giggling with each other and everything, and chuck, and all of that kind of stuff. And that happens with anybody who sits in these offices. Anybody who sits in these offices have to take a vow to protect the entity of the office. And so there's blood on every American president's hands, unjust blood on every American president's hands at some course throughout history, because that is the way the system is set up. Every Russian president, Soviet president, prime minister, UK, anybody who's responsible for running these corporations that are based on imperialistic ideals and philosophies have innocent blood on their hands. So all I'm saying is for us to be mindful and not be hypocritical when we come back and say, oh man, Putin, Ukraine. Well, we can go and we can pull things out on America and everyone else that's a part of that NATO alliance, and China has blood on their hands, all of that. So now that we know this and understand it, when skirmishes start to happen, we think about it with a different mind. Oh, don't they have civil war going on over there? Where you think they're getting the guns from? You think they're sitting up? You think some primitive, economically depressed country is sitting over there getting AKs and all that kind of stuff? Where did they get it from? See, that's the thing. Where do they get this stuff from, and why is it given? Well, a lot of times, people can be at war without having to fight the war. If I just supply you with the arms, you all destroy each other. We're gonna get that oil. We're gonna get that gold. We're going to get that platinum so you can put that in your phones and your uranium and bauxite and all these other kind of things. We're going to get that so we can build and put our computers together. We're going to go, y'all fight that war over there so we can get the rubber for the tires that we need, and the cocoa for the chocolate that we want to make. Y'all go fight, and we'll do that. And then what we'll do is we'll make it so attractive for your brightest minds that we don't have to take them away in ships anymore. What we can do is lure them away by way of financial incentives and scholarships and all of this other kind of stuff. And we'll make sure that your educational system is subpar. It's our educational system, but we'll make it so subpar that they will be clamoring to get out of there and make it look like your presidents are no good. But we're the ones who put your presidents in place. We pay your presidents a handsome reward to make sure that these systems are in place so we can still get the best and brightest and the smartest to come over and be our doctors and lawyers and engineers and everything else. So we still win. So this is how we do it. It's just the game is the same game. It's just been reworked. It's been retooled. It's been repositioned. That's how it is. So anyway, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. That's what it's all about, y'all. I can't get on here and just talk about dancing around and just doing the jig or whatever and just trying to make it sound all pretty and everything. This is the realities of what's going on. And for those of us who have been around for a little while, we see this stuff. Some people don't see it, but at least now if you hear it, you see it, you can go back, pull up some history and go research and get beneath the layers. That's how we bridge the gap when it comes to this information, because although Ukraine and Russia might not have when I say direct, because Putin is doing things in Africa that's out of control and inexcusable. So please understand. So this is to understand that there's no sympathy for Vladimir Putin. It's just saying, hey, this story is deeper than what we're seeing, and so we don't get caught up and sound uneducated. We can just take a little bit more time to dive a little bit deeper and get into the nuts and bolts of it, and understanding that people in other parts of the world don't get the same propaganda that we get from this media. So, all right, everybody, that's all I got for you. Let me see if anybody has anything else to say over here. All right. Hey, what's going on, James? What's going on? All right. All right. Weapons of mass destruction. And sometimes those weapons of mass destruction come by way of what's perceived as education. See, I'm always leery now when there's somebody, I'm educated. Well, what does that mean? You educated in that system, or you really educated? Because you can have a degree. I know a lot of people with a lot of degrees, not very educated. They just know what they know in that degree. But if you want to be broad and culturally educated and all of that, it takes a different type of intention. You know, you have to be intentional about going and getting information. You don't have to travel all over the world to get it. That's a great way to do it. But you can dissect information and compare notes and go back and forth several different ways. So it can definitely happen. Hey, James, what's going on? Hit me on my email at jcameronofficial@gmail.com if you want to rap, jcameronofficial@gmail.com. There it is. There it is, burnt bronze. Isn't that a question? Isn't that something? Make you stop thinking. Wait a minute. They don't go, no, I'm not going to Central African Republic. And they over there putting an AK-47 together. They might have a plant, but where'd they get the parts from? You know, where's all this infrastructure coming from in order the technology for them to be able to do it? Where's it coming from? Come on now. That's the deal. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't know Kwame Nkrumah predicted this. Oh, it's interesting. I definitely go back and read, and yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. All right, everybody. Again, great time. Just wanted to share this little bit of information with you tonight. Hope it's beneficial so that we can go out here, continue bridging the gap, the knowledge gap, economic gap, travel gap, all those different things. That's what we're doing, and thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, like, and share. Hit that like button. Share this content with someone. Let them know, hey, it's not all of what you think it is. And until next time, take care. Be safe.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and mystery. Take an African adventure with daring and destiny. From the mountains to the shore, so many things to explore. Take an African adventure with daring and destiny.